The wage cage. Urban Dictionary defines this term as the establishment where a person is forced to attend during working hours. According to the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, a little more than half of the workforce of the United States receives compensation on an hourly basis. What that means is your hours equals money. But how much money? Determining whether or not you are getting paid a fair wage can become a tricky and complicated question. But if you go around asking multiple news outlets, or even your own coworkers,
I don't have any money, dude! I'm broke, man! My life sucks!
everyone shits on company time, and they don't get paid enough for that shit either. The United States, along with most of the economic West, can attribute the majority of their GDP to revenue-generating services. The workers who stock shelves and servers who take orders should immediately come to mind, as their occupations have been deemed necessary for the organization of goods to be sold to a consumer within their respective environments. Advanced sectors of service economies will see occupations such as software engineers, mechanics, and even therapists, whose specialized training and credentials allow for the fulfillment of needs not easily achieved otherwise. As a service-based economy, we are less concerned with the manufacturing of products and more focused on transformative goods and services that meet the advanced demands of a post-industrial society.
It is called the Quencher H2.0 Flow State Tumbler.
This video's focus is on hourly workers, and my assertion is that their current condition is unsustainably exploited and completely over-leveraged. To some, this might sound hyperbolic, but the reality remains there is a growing amount of contempt for the modern workplace, and I want to explore a little bit about why I think that is. As a 400-pound 19-year-old college dropout, I really considered myself lucky when I applied to Emperor Walton's Modern American Mega Mercantile Omni Bazaar and got a job as one of its associates. While this wasn't my first job, it was the first time I had ever become really interested in my place within a company and within the wider American workforce. Ironically, I attribute this to the mandatory multiple hour-long orientation sessions where I was taught that the company always had my best interest and that workers' unions were actually really exploitative.
We don't think that a labor union is necessary here.
The mere mention of unions was of course cause for extreme concern, and I was told that those who would so much as utter the mention of this foul ritual should be reported immediately for re-education. That last part was a joke, I think. But it's important to understand that most workplaces, at least in my experience, make no point explaining to workers various aspects of the company's employment structure. In fact, conversations about this are generally frowned upon. Most people have experienced this to a degree, such as supervisors or management discouraging discussions around one's own compensation. The nature of this neglect contributes to the majority of workers' general apathy for a company's inner workings, in my opinion, but this actually provides a number of benefits for the employer. Think about your job and the structure your company has. When I was forming an understanding of the hierarchy within my company and my place in it, this is generally what I had believed it to look like. At the bottom, we have the main subject of our interest, the hourly employee. Depending on your sense of business ethics, if such a thing does exist, this is the most humble and contemptible strata of employment. Without this foundation of manpower, the operations of any kind of business simply does not exist. Restaurants, movie theaters, hotels, basically the whole retail and services sector of the economy consists of operations which are surprisingly complex. However, these operations can be broken down into their most fundamental and necessary tasks, each of which makes up a job description for an occupation often awarded the lowest pay. The job of most hourly workers is simple on paper, and contributes to the success of any business. Workers here generally make minimum wage or just a few dollars over it. Right above them we have the supervisorial class of workers, charged with ensuring that teams of hourly workers are doing their part, and doing it expeditiously. These workers occupy that awkward middle stage between the entry-level personnel and upper management. Their responsibilities might include a little mix of the menial tasks while also juggling minor but sometimes major administrative responsibilities. The ordering of inventory, the hiring and training of staff, managing large projects, really anything having to do with the overall company's direction and matter of business. When Karen asks to speak with a manager, this is the person she is talking to, and most often who she believes is at fault for any grievances she has. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. These jobs can often fucking suck, and salary expectations can vary wildly depending on the company and part of the industry you find yourself in. Your wage might be as little as $2 above an hourly entry-level employee, or you might obtain a modest salary. In either case, you are the one to blame for the actions of those who are paid too little to care. But with this responsibility comes some degree of mobility, as super managers who drink the company Kool-Aid are seen by their superiors as honorable, respectable, and maybe even deserving of more responsibility. And a bit more money. Above our direct managers and supervisors, we have the general managers, district managers, and general corporate office administrative teams. Think human resources and accounting. I have placed general managers here despite them typically working at the ground level, not only because they can generally boast comparable salaries, but also because they are part of the people who have really taken a step back from task-to-task operations as a whole in order to ensure that the overall systems of an operation run as they should, and they do the hard troubleshooting when they don't. It's worth noting that a company's overall performance is of the greatest interest to this group, as bonus structures nowadays are set up exclusively for this strata, or at the very least to benefit them the most. The better a company does, the more money these guys make. But what does better mean exactly? We're going to keep this question in mind because it has a lot to do with why so much suffering is concentrated within the bottom tiers of work. Finally, we have our CEO, the celestial emperor of the office. This is the person who blesses teams beneath him with direction. This person decides what a company does, who will be in charge of making it happen, when they will do it, and how it will be done. They command the highest salary and the most respect of anyone from the previous strata. Being a paragon of Western virtue and a master in the art of the deal, this is the highest state of being any one person can achieve within the American samsara. It is important to recognize that while most businesses will organize themselves in a way that looks something like this, the reality of most American corporations today looks less like my simple and easy to understand pyramid and more like this. Still quite stratified, but there is so much more going on in your place of work than your day-to-day impression of it will allow you to see. Don't let that discourage you though. Knowing your masters is the first step towards destroying them. While businesses' corporate structure might differ in form from one another, they are all the same in function. The goal of any group of people in charge of a company is to optimize its efficiency. Put even more simply, to make it continuously more and more profitable. For hourly workers and the rest of us at the bottom tier of work, the meta of business profitability has mandated labor cuts. People see less hours or even less jobs available for them to work, ultimately squashing any possibility for them to literally put in the hours and pull themselves up by their bootstraps. If one place of employment is only giving you 20 hours or so, or maybe even just a meager salary, you have little option but to attempt to take a second job for another company which similarly values you very, very little. In a sick twist of irony, it is this very situation that alienates people from their work the most. We are just too damn busy struggling to maintain a decent standard of living that we don't often have the will nor energy to even put up a facade that we care about a workplace beyond its ability to provide pathetic compensation. There is a pervading narrative that increased wages lead to an increased cost of goods, but we are already experiencing that without people being paid a livable wage. As consumers, we often find ourselves stuck at Walmart lockups waiting for employees with too much to do and not enough reason to care. Profit-driven optimizations to businesses leave consumers in boring, sleek, soulless buildings run by people who are regarded as nothing more than the pesky, easily replaceable cost of doing business. We're very quickly heading toward a reality which sees a world of business so optimized that it has no need for the majority of people whose societies are made up of 90% shopping centers and parking lots. It's just so goddamn depressing. I know many people whose lives have simply become work, spend money on food, and then sleep. To do anything else brings about the question of how it can be monetized. Like, I'm just like at a loss here. Where is there time to be human? I don't think I've covered any new ground here, but it's important to realize that there are real people making real decisions that harm people's livelihoods for their own gain. And I believe that the logical conclusion to all this is a world built for a population that can't even afford to live inside of it. It's easy to take a look at this dissatisfaction with our relationship to work and say, well, that's just how businesses go. But I really want to challenge people to start questioning what the purpose of work and their labor is. This challenge needs to be taken to our bosses' bosses, but I don't have a whole lot of faith in those guys. The money these people make off the employees who work for them rarely gets reinvested back into their communities, and if it does, it's always in the form of yet another place where people can do nothing but spend money on crap they don't really need. Can we imagine a world within our lifetime where the fruits of our labor goes directly towards benefiting people we care about and see every day? I definitely have some ideas, but I really just wanted to open up the conversation about our labor, our time, and the money that we're not making. So I would love to hear about it from anyone who's listening, what their opinions about everything I've said is, and what their opinions about labor is. I understand this feels a little bit more like a rant than an examination, but I'm grateful to anyone who sticks around and who feels it necessary to share their opinion. I'll read every single one of them. I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thanks for listening.